Still there.
Oh.
And here we go.
Consider this your trigger warning. The following program is strictly satire and is not meant to be taken seriously. So don't get all butthurt, you liberal snowflakes, just because we skewer your sacred cows and expose all your lies and hypocrisy. Truth hurts, and so does satire. So grab a drink, pull up a chair, and enjoy the show.
I really enjoy the hell out of that new intro. Thank you, Mr. T. And he's got more of that kind of stuff coming. Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. If you're not here, you're missing the real deal. We've got Uman in the background. You fuck up, he's going to blue wrench your ass out of the studio. If you're a good guy, and you've got to be a good guy to be here live because you're on the preparedmind.club or Subscribestar, then welcome back. You guys have been absolutely awesome and kicking ass as we go into our 10th year right here. We're not new to this. We know what the hell's going on because we've been watching it. If you're new joining, you're going to get an earful and a mindful because chance favors the prepared mind. Get your questions down below and we'll talk about them live Monday through Friday on the club and on the star. I just feel it today, man. There's this fucking Monday madness and you're not going to believe what's going on. You're not going to believe it. I'm going to start with this one because this one hit home for me. Now, the site, right, of police training in Atlanta, right, Future Safety Training Center today was destroyed by a fire. And this isn't in our food. This isn't our infrastructure. This is agent training. Now, Antifa was clashing with police. Now, I have a very, very close family member in Georgia on training starting today for the rest of the week. Is it a coincidence he's there? I sure hope so. But he is federal law enforcement and he's getting training there. And I asked him, I said, man, is this involving you? He said, no, it's actually involving ATF. ATF is involved in dealing with Antifa. So it's not just the police. Now, normally I'd say, that sounds like scuttlebutt. But this person is so close to me that if they lied, I'll beat his ass. And he can get close enough to me that if he wants, there's no reason to lie. Folks, Antifa's going absolutely apeshit. They've already attacked down in Georgia, and one of their members got killed, and then they went nuts and started rioting in other places. Monday Madness, I told you something was going to happen, and I think this is part of it. We were asked, when is this going to get crazy? What's the number one thing that you could think kick things off? And I said, well, racial tension because of the stupidity there. Well, it could also be political tension. They're losing, folks. As they destroy America, they're also losing the battle as they get exposed and people are targeting them. Antifa, BLM, and other loser groups out there like, the drag queens and other sick, perverted dementos. They've gone mad, all of them, folks. Now, I have a few questions I want to ask you to think about this. Right? If these idiots in Antifa are willing to attack federal officers and law enforcement, local and state law enforcement, do you think they're going to hesitate to go after you if they feel like it? If they're willing to shoot at cops, if they're willing to set fire to training facilities and face off with cops, do you think they're going to think twice about putting a bullet between your eyes? Well, they may not think twice about it. I doubt they can do it skill level, being the thing in question here, but they're getting violent, folks. And we're not even in spring. Spring is March 21st. We're only on the 6th right here. It is unbelievable what is happening. The politicization of our justice system, everything is now political in question. It truly is, folks. Everything is politicized. The courts, the legislature, the executive branch, the bureaucracy, everything. How laws are enforced, how laws are punished and prosecuted, everything is politicized. Which means if it's a political war, it's a partisan war. And I think that's what they're pushing for, is us as partisans. The left versus the right, if you want to call it that. I like to call it socialist versus freedom, right? Because people who like freedom, they are not socialists. And people who like socialism hate freedom. That's who is on, folks, each side of this. Now, I'm going to do my 30-minute monologue, folks. We're 6 minutes into it. Get your questions down below. Uman will gather. Jolene will gather them. And we have a lot of stuff to go over today. A lot of stuff as we kick off this week. From World War III to your neighborhood, we're going to discuss things. Now, 23 suspects have been identified as attacking this training center. I think law enforcement may have had enough with these little bastards. Well, because they're coming after police directly. That makes them a very serious threat. Again, if they're willing to shoot police, local, state, or federal, they're willing to shoot any of us. And understand this, the police, I think, are getting tired of it, and they're ready to fuck them up. Right? Now, this is interesting. There were 23 Antifa scumbags identified in the Atlanta area. Only 2 are from Georgia, meaning basically, folks, 9 out of 10 are infiltrators from other states. In other words, they travel around to cause trouble. There's not as many of them as they'd like to pretend. Now, remember the Bolshevik socialists or communists, if you will, who took over Russia. It was a bunch of radical young idiots who stirred up hatred and discontent in Russia and ultimately attacked and then took things over. They aren't that numerous here in America, not at this time. People are too lazy and apathetic on both sides of the spectrum. You'll have people who love freedom, but they're fucking lazy as fuck. Pardon my F language. But these people on the left, they're equally as socialist lazy as they are socialist activist. Think about it. Right? That's why they use social media, mainstream media, and government to push their agenda and their antics all over us. Now, are the police learning their lesson? I don't think so. I really don't. I think they know that they're targets, but are they going to change? From what I'm catching through communication channels is police at all levels, all around the country, are basically their own little tribes. They look out for each other, and they'll take care of each other. But ultimately, they're like any other group. They're tribal, and they're gonna do their best to survive as individuals and as groups. Just interesting to understand, folks. As above, so below, in the past and in the future. It's going to be human nature, if you will, that guides the actions and activities that occur in SHTF. Now, here's another example of that. And once again, get your questions down below. I don't want you to forget. If you've got something to say, get it down there, including, let's see, I'm going to say Mr. Skylight, another guy named Orlando. He's got something he wanted to bring up. There's a lot of stuff going on that even the alternative news isn't talking about. It's out there. So get this. It's tribal. It's us versus them. So Representative out of Ohio, Republican Jim Jordan, he wants to find out what the hell is going on in the FBI. And since the Republicans control the House of Representatives, he gets to be in charge. Well, it's tribal there, folks. It's all political. Get this. There are there's officials, FBI officials, who whistleblowers have said, they're bad. But the Democrats are there to defend them, even though they're unnamed. I want to know how you can defend an unnamed person unless, yes, the congressmen know exactly who they are and what it is they have done. So even before the testimony can start, there's a fight. They don't want the facts to come out, any facts, even though you and I know that odds are nothing will happen to these people. Nothing. Did Ruby Rod Rosenstein, did he go to jail? Did Jim Comey go to jail? Did Chris Wray get kicked out of the FBI for being a douche? No. In fact, they all get their pensions. Right? They get to keep their jobs. They get to keep their money. How about Peter Strzok, the evil elf? That little freaking freak. Yeah, he gets to keep his job, right? His pension, his money, whatever. Oh, they kicked him out. Sure they did. You buying that? I bet they could take these crooked motherfuckers out of the FBI and march him across the camera wearing orange jumpsuits and handcuffs. And they take them into courtroom and say, oh, yeah, they're guilty. And then just let them go out the back door with new identities, new suits, and lots of money. These people are so corrupt and evil, they'll protect each other. And I don't mind making that allegation. And it's pure speculation. It's pure satire. It's pure cynicism. That's how cynical I am about our justice system. You can't even question these people in Congress knowing they're not going to get in trouble, because everything they have to say, folks, is an embarrassment to the justice system, law and order, and our country. They don't want to be embarrassed any more than you or I would want to be embarrassed. But what they have to say and what they've done is so nasty, folks, and so corrupt that they don't want it exposed, because eventually they'll have to pay. And at the very least, their consciences, right? When they go stand before the pearly gates, they're going to have to answer for their shit there. Now here's another example, though, of exactly how corrupt the system is, right? This is a Gateway Pundit article, and I've got a lot to add to their headline, right? A January 6th defendant. That's right. A January 6th defendant over 2 years ago has new evidence that has been released by Congress, by McCarthy. There is new evidence, yet the defendant is not being given time to review it, right? A retired policewoman, right, NYPD, she is going to have her trial starts today. And guess what? The kangaroo crunt of a judge, tyrant, is denying a plea for more time, saying, hey, look, we just got this evidence. We need time to review it. Judge says, nope, we're not going to give that to you. You mean you've held them for over 2 fucking years, and now you can't give them any more time with new evidence coming? That is exactly what a kangaroo court is, folks. And any judge that runs a kangaroo court is what I'm going to call a kangaroo crunt. These fucking people. They don't care if they're embarrassing themselves, as long as their agenda persists. And their agenda, folks, is to destroy America. It really is. It really is. I mean, here we go with yet another example. And there's example after example after example as this country goes downhill. I want to ask you, are you getting more and more and more prepared? Now, here, I mean, the lunacy and the political, folks, persecution, prosecution, and an absolute, they're now individually picking on people to damage them. And here it is. I mean, this is ridiculous. A world-class tennis player, no, the world's premier tennis player, is being refused entry into the United States of America because he is the international face of denying the Jim Jones juice, saying he wouldn't take it. Australia wouldn't let him in, and now the U.S. will not let him in to play tennis. Tennis. He's not hugging people. He's not tackling people. He's a one lone guy on a tennis court swatting at a ball. We can't have him in the country. Oh, fuck that. That's just too dangerous, right? Novak Djokovic. It's almost an interesting name, right? Djokovic. Anyways, he's not allowed in. The world's greatest tennis player at this time, not allowed in. Now, you're probably thinking, who gives a fuck, John? It's a tennis player. The Biden administration is allowing filthy, stinking, untested immigrants by the millions to enter this country. By the millions. We don't know if they're absolutely diseased or only partly diseased. We don't know if they have any immunizations or all of them. We don't know anything about these people. Just let them in. 100,000 here, 100,000 there, 100,000 here. And that's every month. Millions since Biden has taken over. But they won't allow one world-class, ultra-healthy tennis player come in because he has denounced the Jim Jones juice, refused to take it, and is one healthy SOB, right? And I'll tell you what, I bet he's going to continue to dominate the tennis court because he has not taken that shit, which lowers your immune system, weakens you, and as we all know, exposes one to instantaneous death, heart attacks, strokes, paralysis, etc. Now, I think he's pretty smart, and he's going to continue to dominate because he's not destroying his immune system and his lungs and his heart and everything else. I still am laughing about Pfizer's. Actually, it's the Babylon Bee who did a parody, a cynical, satirical look at Pfizer, right? And all of their spokespeople keeling over before they can read the teleprompter. Hilarious video. You will not find it on YouTube because, you know, it's just too satirical and too accurate. They don't like that shit. Monday Madness, folks. Monday Madness. Where do we go? Let's take it up a notch. We're going to go international. International. In the country of South Africa. Guess what? They're facing a potential power grid failure. Possibly total. Regional at the very least. Conditions are horrible there with their power grid. And the consequences is, well, the natives are restless. That's right. South African natives, meaning the people who live there, have had it. Well, hell, folks, here in America, the natives get pretty restless when the power goes out. And I'm not talking about Native Americans. I'm talking about people who were born here, American citizens, who are used to having anything they want at any moment. If you can't afford it, fuck it, put it on a credit card, right? Instant gratification, that's the American way. Well, when you go to flip the light switch on and it ain't there, when you go to get a cold one out of the fridge and it ain't cold, when you think you're going to get a good meal and instead you get spoiled food, they're going to go nuts. Well, South Africa, folks, is looking at collapse societally and civil war. The reason I bring up South Africa, folks, is not because of the racist bullshit going on there, because I instead would like to ask you, how far behind is the United States of America? Our grid has been shown to be under attack by terrorist morons. What happens when more, shall we say, more adept, more intelligent, more organized terrorists decide they're going to take down our grid and attack it? And if it isn't the terrorists trying to take down our grid, government incompetence, chicken and shit planning by the government is putting us at risk of losing our grid as well. We've all had and seen the rolling blackouts coming from the west coast of the United States. I saw that shit all the time. It's like, did you think that as the state grows in population that there's going to be less power usage? It doesn't matter how many LED lights you put in to replace your incandescent bulbs. You just can't. Everything consumes more power. Well, now California's actually losing residents because the smart people with money can afford to leave. But yeah, in the United States, how far is it that we are behind a country like South Africa, which is looking at a civil war? Combine a power grid outage here with all of the partisan horse shit going on and the willingness to commit acts of violence by the left. Are you prepared in a scenario that is grid down or not, that is stores down or not? That is fuel delivery down or not? Are you prepared for Antifa or BLM or other left-wing attacks? Are you prepared for the consequences? You make one person's life difficult, and then they make two people, then you've got 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, and so on and so forth, right? Explosive expansion of asshole behavior. That's what SHTF is, folks. We're seeing and getting a taste of that, I think, is what I'm trying to share with you. Are you prepared? Right? We say it here. Chance favors the prepared mind. For all those people that are not prepared at all, that have zero food, zero water, they don't have the right clothing for the environment they're in. They're good for one season, but not for the next, right? They don't have medicine. They don't know about first aid. They don't know about anything. Their power system, they have no solar backup generator, nothing. They have no self-defense. If they've got no self-defense, what happens? What if they do have self-defense, but they don't have a good understanding of what it's for and how to use it? You think they're going to pull their gun on anybody that pisses them off? Good chance of it. Good chance of it, right? And then you've got these groups that are already training and thinking about acts of violence, like Antifa. They will come after easier targets. If they're willing to attack federal agents, ATF, if they're willing to attack police in training, they're definitely willing to attack softer targets, right? Because they're chicken shit. Remember when BLM went into all those neighborhoods and started burning homes? Those people were like, hey, get them the fuck out of here. The rich people in their neighborhoods were like, shut the gates and get them the fuck out of here. Well, in St. Louis, that's right, the cul-de-sac commando himself, the McClotskys, well, they got arrested for defending themselves. They didn't have to fire a bullet, folks. All they had to do is, right, stand on their own ground, private property, and hold their weapons. And that was enough for these left-wing lunatics to persecute them. But at least their homes weren't burned. Their animals weren't killed, and they weren't assaulted by these sick fucks. But they will go after soft targets. We did hear about the left-wing idiots going into suburbs and getting their asses kicked. In other neighborhoods, they walked through, waking people up all night with their bullhorns and demanding that they be allowed to sleep in the houses. And people put up with that shit and encouraged it. If we remember, I think it was Bethel, Ohio, up in the neck of the woods, close to the Italian hillbilly, right? They were trying to, in Bethel, they were trying to take over the town. And bikers and patriots and veterans weren't going to have any of that shit. It became a national hotspot, at least until Kyle Rittenhouse came along and changed that menu item. It's like, I'll take a Kyle Rittenhouse and some fries, right? And a big old bag of popcorn to watch how this shit rolls out. It's a complete fucking clusterfuck. Pardon my French, folks, but my days are jam-packed. From the moment I wake up, the alarm goes off, my shit starts, and I'm on this all day long. If I get a free second, I'm paying attention to what's going on in the world. Right now, I like to ask questions. Questions like this. The thumbnail is of Joe Biden, a complete moron, right? Guess what? He is 0-3 for climbing stairs on Air Force One. I guess he has climbed it and made it a few times, but he's fallen down again. Folks, him tripping and falling on the stairs once is a joke, and boy, have we had some laughs at his expense. The other day, well, you fall on the stairs twice, that raises some questions. And Jill Biden, first bitch of a wife, said, hey, how dare you, right? How dare you want to question the president's competence and ability and mental this, his mental health. You don't have any right to ask for that. Well, look, we've seen him bumble and fumble and lose his place and start screaming and yelling at people for no reason. And we've seen him fail mechanically, falling on the stairs. He did it again, right? 3 times, third time's a charm, third time proves there's a motor function issue that's failing with this guy. Hey, but I'm no expert, right? Right? I'm no medical expert, so I don't get to talk about that. I don't get to talk about that. Oh my goodness. But I think this, folks, there's some more stuff. I've got so many stories. I don't know what to call the top story. I've got opening stories and top stories. I hope you've got your questions ready to go. Around the world, we've been discussing issues like South Africa, riots, protests, possible civil war. Up in Ukraine, you've got a battle over world superpowers wanting to move nukes closer to Russia. In third world countries and even emerging market countries like Mexico, Mexico's always trying to get up there, trying to be a real country, right, on the first level. Well, it's been falling down the last few years, and I've said, you couldn't give me free tickets, free lodging in Mexico. I just don't care. So here we have yet another example. And I know people, I know a guy, client, just went to and then got back from Mexico. A brief vacation. Other people going to Mexico for vacation. Why? Right? 4 citizens are now missing. There was a cartel shootout in Matamoros, Mexico. And 4 Americans, right, we got kind of tangled in this melee, bullets flying, and then they got kidnapped. Folks, the world is in crisis. Now, not every city is burning. Not every person is standing at their door with a gun peeking through the curtains. But we're getting there. We're getting there. They're pushing for it. If you doubt me, why don't you just go down to your nearest ghetto, get out of your car, leave the door open with the keys in it, and see who gives you the attention that you really don't want to deal with. I tell you. Unbelievable. Where do we go, folks? We're fighting back. I think I'm going to end my monologue with some positive news. States have taken a look at how the elections are run and how they're controlled and how their people are registered, et cetera, et cetera. And there's this thing called the ERIC system. ERIC system. And it's been under a lot of scrutiny, if you will. This ERIC system is supposed to fix the voter rolls, right? But it's not working. Let's look at Wisconsin, for example. They have 7 million registered voters, and they only have 4 million eligible voters. How does that work? How do you have more registered voters than people who are even eligible for it? So people are saying ERIC isn't working. This ERIC system is obsolete and it's inefficient and it sucks. But the Democrat Party loves it, that's for sure. But states are now looking at it. They're looking at it. And 3 more states have pulled out of it. So people or the good states are starting to abandon it. And they should, because it's a failure. Absolutely a failure. It's unbelievable, folks, what they want, right? Missouri, West Virginia, and yes, Florida, the big target that the Democrats hate is Florida, right? Missouri Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft, you may know the name, said, hey, these states are going to make this announcement later today. They're trying to leave this behind. They're trying to clean up the system, and it needs to be cleaned up. Funny how the Democrats want more people voting, more access, unchecked names. Don't check registration. Just start counting the votes. And of course, call every race early anywhere there's a Democrat that they want in office. Anyways, Missouri has been in the lead trying to get this ERIC system reformed. I say you just throw it out. You show up, you show an ID and you vote. How is that so hard to do? Right? You can't do anything else without a driver's license. You can't drive without a driver's license, yet you can vote. You can determine. It's ridiculous, right? Mainstream media is going to lose their shit over this, and I can't wait. I can't wait to hear them cry. I can't wait to see all of the crocodile snowflake tears. And I really like the new intro provided by Mr. T. Thank you very much. Let's do this, though. It is now time for the inner circle. You guys to ask your questions. It's time. Gotta love it. All right. We've got a lot of questions and comments for today, kicking off Monday Madness. Oh, man, who do we want to bring in first? Who wants to crack the ice? And it is Chin Music. Thanks again for the great donation on Sunday Night Live. Yeah, he says, John, the greatest troll of all time was Let's Go Brandon. Says, get Mr. T to roll into the intro for the Biden stupidity segments. Well, I tell you what, Mr. T, he volunteers his time and his professional skills. There's so much that is done here, folks, that costs money, and there's so much that is done on a volunteer basis. So I make recommendations and suggestions to Mr. T, and he provides us with more than we could have ever hoped for. Pro bono, if you will. And it's just like, by time he makes something for Biden, Biden's done, and we switch to some other thing to focus on, right? Their failures are insurmountable, right? They keep somehow, no, let's take it another way. There's no limit to the amount of stupid coming from the politicians, the media, the military, the left-wing military, the education system worldwide, that every time we come up with an intro just for one topic, by the time we get it done and I actually have the time to upload it, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Something else has got our attention. So there's some stuff that is time sensitive, but I agree with you. Biden being an idiot is the gift that keeps on giving. But like the Biden crime family, that was a great little piece, a fun intro piece that Mr. T made. But what did they do? What did the mainstream media do? They quit covering it, and it quit being an issue, as if everything on that laptop has been resolved. No, not hardly. Yet somehow it's left the news stream. Here's a little look at some of the work Mr. T does on that. Come on, man. I mean, it takes a lot of creativity, folks, and that old school kind of cop sleuth stuff, right? Great music there. But you want evidence that the Biden crime family exists? That evidence is silence from the mainstream media. The corruption, the bribery, the extortion schemes, all of those emails, all of the evidence, whistleblowers saying, look over there. Look right there. All of the evidence sitting in what? Joe's garage, Joe's office, Joe's 4 or 5 different locations where there were boxes of secret documents, unsecured. Well, they were behind my Corvette in the garage. So obviously they were safe. And he gets away with it. Talk about a crime family, you bet. You absolutely bet. Thank you there, Chin Music. Let's move on with another super duper question. And it's coming from Ooman. And he says, wonder when the escalator gets installed on Air Force One. Call it Stair Force One. That's pretty funny. Stair Force. Yeah, they're going to need to come up with a better name for it, right? Air Farce One. Because they, or Air Fart One. Because the guy craps his pants on a minute by minute basis. Right. Here's the escalator. The point behind the steps that, the stairs leading into Air Force One, it's supposed to make the president look more presidential, right? He's not taxiing up to a terminal, which of course exposes the president and the plane and all the entourage to potential terror attacks. So if you park them way out on the end of a runway, right, harder to get attacked there, right? And then he gets to look presidential. Everyone lining up at the bottom of the stairs as he walks down the carpet rouge, right? Well, and the president's supposed to look young and spry and healthy, no matter how aged he or she is. We haven't had a she president yet, but I imagine we're going to get one in the next couple of elections. Wouldn't surprise me at this fucking point. I'm just not surprised. I mean, should I be surprised? I don't think so, but I'm not going to be. Anyways, the point is the president looks and climb stairs and come downstairs, right? Capable, healthy, vibrant, strong America. Not with this idiot. You put him on some stairs, he falls. You put him on a bicycle, he falls. And I don't care if he had his feet locked into the pedals on the bike. He's an idiot. If you can't take him out and know how to operate his bike, yeah. There you go. There you have it. Let us move on if we shall. Blue Cord Devil checks in. He asked this question. How does Uncle Fester, that would be Senator Festerman, Uncle Festerman, Fetterman. How does he co-sponsor a Safer Train Act while in the hospital? Well, is he in the hospital, like a medical hospital, or is he in a mental hospital? Remember, folks, he had a bunch of strokes, or no, he just had some health issues, but he's fine. Then he campaigned on people, even people with mental illness. Screwballs should be allowed to be elected and serve. No, they can't. There should be a general competency test. Climbing stairs, speaking intelligently, and I don't know, how about this? Pass a written test to make sure you understand the English language and you understand the Constitution. There's a novel fucking concept, huh? So how does he do it? Well, he does it by proxy. That's right. He tells the people in his office, or rather they tell him, now listen here, Senator, even though you're in the hospital, we need to try and pretend like you're a senator and you can do something. So we're going to write up, right? Or we're going to take this legislation that a bunch of lawyers wrote, and we're going to sign your name to it and make it look like you're doing something. Unbelievable. I think he's doing it from a mental hospital. So any legislation written by or sponsored by a mental derelict should be considered dangerous legislation, because they can't look at it with an eye towards the Constitution and the spirit of it and freedom and liberty. Nope. Just out of bounds. But here we are, folks. Here we are. Expect more of that type of crap. Unbelievable. All righty, let's keep on rolling. And it's Chin Music again. He says, John, heard you this AM talk of partisan conflict. The reality is difference of opinion has become so 20th century. we know have different facts. This is going to prove catastrophic. It's interesting. I'm going to go with this, Chin Music. We have different facts, or we cite different facts. For someone on the left, the facts they look at and point to and try to use as evidence to support their political position has nothing to do with America and freedom. It has to do with what they think is going to make the country better. But their idea of better has nothing to do with, well, law, order, and freedom. So you and I, on the other hand, we go, okay, we start with the Constitution is up here. And so everything else that doesn't agree with the principles of the Constitution and liberty, everything else is subservient to it. You can't reach the level where you're going to change and run government unless you keep those things in mind. Every step along the way as you move up, it needs to be examined through that lens: freedom, liberty, and the republic. But that's not, those are facts for me. That is logic for me. That is a critical thinking path that I take when examining things. To them, the Constitution isn't the pinnacle that has to be reached, or the Rubicon that has to be crossed to get over that before you can offer some legislation. They see it instead as the first obstacle. Well, they have an idea they think is superior. So to get over the Constitution, all they have to do is ignore it. And so they can look at other laws that ignore the Constitution, or they look to other countries overseas, or they just flat out say the Constitution's wrong. You know, the First Amendment is outdated. The Second Amendment, it never said what it said. They find abortion in the Constitution. Somehow, magically, it's there. But, right, other things, right? Well, for safety. It's for public safety, a public good. Right? The people want, and so therefore the Constitution doesn't matter. So those are the facts they point to. And they're very subjective facts, just like my philosophy of freedom first, even though it's embedded in the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, our founding documents, right? The Bill of Rights, the Federalist Papers. You know, that to me seems to be a lot of supporting documentation that is legal, common law, legal, it's tradition, it's custom, and it's embedded, right? It's part of the foundation of human rights. They don't see it that way. They see it as another set of facts. Well, in communist Russia and communist China, they had no problem just writing over the top of people's rights because, you know, democracy. As if communism is democracy. They use democracy as the springboard to take over a government, and then they use totalitarian dictatorship to destroy everything, and then, well, create their communist dreams and utopias, which fail and fail and fail again, but not before killing millions of people. They refuse to see those facts, don't they? Once again, I use a little bit of common sense. I look at some history, and I see all that death around socialism. And I know that that'll be coming for you, not just for me, but for you. If they get their way, if they get more power. And social conflict is a huge part of it. Instead of the government coming after us, they're using partisan groups to come after us. The news media wants to come after us. The education system wants to come after us. Hey, law enforcement wants to call you a terrorist. And so other people feel, well, if the FBI calls parents terrorists, then obviously they're terrorists, and we feel we're empowered now to go after them. And then you have politicians saying, if you see a Republican, right, congressman, you don't let them eat food, don't let them operate in public, don't give them any peace, harass the shit out of them. So much so that they went after the Supreme Court justices and broke the law and were screaming and yelling and protesting outside their homes in violation of federal law. But don't worry, the Attorney General didn't think that there was any real problem there, even though it violated the law directly. It violated the principles that judges, that is, shouldn't have to tolerate in their personal lives both threats and political pressure, right? That they should be able to look at things non-prejudicially. I would like to think that, well, what they need to do is look at those groups and what they're calling for. And if they're willing to be radical and violent about it, well, I don't know. maybe there's a reason, that they're radicals and violent, because what they want is unlawful, and it doesn't come from a place in the mind of reason, but rather it comes from a place in the mind that is an illiterate, emotional dung heap. All right, let's go with that. And man, let us continue, if we shall. And it is Denier says, this war is dragging its feet. We're talking about Ukraine now. Americans won't see any changes for several years to come. So it's a waste of time trying to talk to sleeping people about it. Well, that's interesting. I do like your description of it as a war that's dragging its feet. We're not going to see any changes in this war unless someone wants to really make that happen. Now, dragging their feet, who benefits? Remember, let's always ask who benefits. Well, the rich and the wealthy who are capitalizing on the money laundering schemes that are involved in the Ukraine. And yeah, we have direct evidence of that occurring through the FTX scandal. Oh yeah, where's the FTX scandal in the news cycle? Right? If Mr. T had made an FTX intro, outro transition, right, for Sam Bankman fraud, right, who sent billions over to Ukraine, billions and billions and billions and billions to be laundered and then donated to Democrats and Rhino Republicans, right? They're benefiting from it. Who else is benefiting from it? Oh, the military-industrial complex. They're selling more guns than ever. They're selling more bullets than ever. They're selling more explosives than ever, and missiles and bombs and rockets and shit that they're sending over there for the Ukraine military to shoot at the Russian military and kill everyone. And they're getting killed, and the Russians are getting killed. Everyone gets killed. So again, Denier, who benefits? Now, what does the war do? Right, so the military-industrial complex people, they benefit. The money laundering scheme, they benefit. Do the American people benefit, or what does it do? Well, it annoys us, it pisses us off, but we've kind of got some predictive programming, if you will, coming from Voldemort Zelensky himself with his statement that, well, if you quit supporting us, the sons and daughters of America will have to come over and fight the Russians themselves. He directly threatened, in my opinion, American families, American people. And I really think that, the funding should be pulled out from under him. And yes, more Democrats and Republicans are starting to question, what are we doing over there? What are we doing over there? They are dragging their feet. But what would it take, Denier, or is it Denier? What would it take for there to be an incredible escalation that would bring full focus into view, would make the American people go, hey, 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 who do you think you are? Well, how about, right, dropping a nuke? I mean, they've already shown us they're willing to destroy all kinds of crap. They're willing to show us that. Nord Stream pipeline, terror, explosion. That, my friends, was the equivalent of a nuclear bomb going off, but it was done underwater. But it is a nuclear bomb, and the amount of energy that was released and wasted, and the fact that Europe has been denied their energy. That's huge, folks. Absolutely huge. They're willing to do that. What else are they willing to do? If they need American support, if they need to distract America, if they need to scare America into supporting Washington, D.C. and their efforts to go after Russia, then they just need a very large event. Any event, and they can blame it on the Russians. How they blame Nord Stream on the Russians. The Russians have blown up the Nord Stream pipeline so that Germans can't get natural gas. It's like, well, that's Russian gas. Why would Russia blow up their own gas line when all they have to do is shut the valve off? Shut the valve off. Unbelievable what's going on. But this was brought to my attention by one of you guys. Top secret squirrel insider named Orlando sent me some info today about, a Russian submarine hanging around off the U.S. coast. The U.S. coast. Yes, the U.S. coast. Are they allowed to do that? Well, sure, as long as they're in international waters. But what's the threat there? Well, the threat is that, those submarines can be armed with nuclear weapons, and they can also be armed with hypersonic missiles that travel so fast that they can't be seen, and there is no air defense system that could mitigate the destruction that they rain down upon America. Well, what if an American hypersonic missile went off, or any missile for that matter went off in America, taking out Miami, Charleston, New York, Boston, right? Philly. Along the eastern seaboard, there's a number of major cities that could be hit with a very large explosion, and that would make the war very real. And they could blame the Russians and say, the Russians are right off the coast. Must have been them. Well, what do you mean? How would the United States bomb its own cities? Would they do that just to get into war? Well, would they bomb a pipeline that feeds Europe its energy just so they can have their filthy war? Would they blow up the World Trade Center? All those buildings there, including Building 7? Would they do that just to get their war? Wow. Start asking the big questions. You start getting some funky answers. And yeah, that's a rabbit hole, folks, but I tell you what, it's worth going down. It truly is. That's a rabbit hole and a half. 9/11. The Boston bombing was a rabbit hole. Sandy Hook was a rabbit hole, right? The Parkland shooting down in Florida, that was a rabbit hole. How about Aurora, Colorado? That was a rabbit hole. You start getting into the evidence, folks, and looking at the facts, and you can look at all the facts or some of the facts, and you'll start seeing some high strangeness that makes you question the reality you live in. And one of the things I always come back to is, what is my purpose? Well, my purpose is to help people wake the hell up. Right? They may not like what they're reading and seeing. Right? It's hard to wake up people who don't want to wake up, who are comfortable in their slumber, right? Their mental slumber. But something like that bomb going off in America, or even in Europe for that matter, could wake Americans up that are asleep. But will they wake up and say, support Biden? Or would they wake up and go, hey, that's enough of this shit, right? The idea we want is for them to look around and go, well, none of this is right, so you better get prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, right? Get your plan together and then prep to action. It's a huge part of this channel is to say, look, write, text, email everyone in Washington, D.C., even if they're not your representatives. Just tell them, hey, look, I'm tired of this shit. Live up to your oath. Follow the law. Protect this country. Put America first, right? Stop the illegal immigration. Stop all illegal military action. Stop all biological warfare research centers. Stop that shit, right? Stop destroying American institutions like, the military, for example, our national defense. Stop treating it like some kind of social fruitcake experiment, right? So when you prep to action, you start making a difference. And once again, I think this is key to understand, is you can vote, and that's great. But it is after you have voted and everyone else goes back to sleep, you're still awake and you're still influencing these people that are in office and convincing them every time you write that we're watching them and that they need to do as they're told by us, those of us who are texting and emailing them. I have many congressmen sending me response emails on a regular basis. This is what we're doing in Washington. I don't care what you say you're doing. Do what I say to do. Very interesting, folks. You can start quite a few conversations, whether you're dealing with a campaign or staffer in their office, which is what you're doing. I'm sure I'm not getting letters directly from congressmen who are like, oh, it's John again. Let me send him a letter, a response, very personalized. It's not happening. But they tally the information and they tell the congressmen and they tell the senators, this is what's going on. This is what the people are concerned about. Interesting stuff. Let's do this. Man, I think we got a few more questions. Let's keep on rolling. We're going to keep on keeping on. Mr. X says, people are like sheep. Yes, they are. They turn and find out where all the other sheep are, and they want to go join the rest of the herd. Bah, 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 right? They want to put their nose in someone else's butt and go, I'm following you. Now, continue with Mr. X. He says, people are like sheep, but not the people with their eyes open like us. Before too long, we as the preppers will be called domestic terrorists, just like the school board parents. Well, I got news for you, Mr. X. Preppers have been domestic terrorists, according to the government, longer than parents. If you remember back even during the Tea Party, folks, that was during the Obama administration, early on in the Obama administration, during the See Something, Say Something campaign shit of Valerie Jarrett, who was head of Department of Homeland Security. They were calling veterans of the military threats. Threats. Right? The National Defense Authorization Act, the Homeland Security crap, put people who are veterans and preppers and patriots, they called them terrorists. In fact, they used the political machine to punish groups. Right? So the Tea Party had the IRS went after them. Any group out there, any organized group, the IRS went after them on behest of Obama, who didn't like them. That's who these people are. So yeah, we're already domestic terrorists, according to law enforcement. Now, way back in the 1990s, I remember as the internet came out, they started releasing footage of police training sessions. And they would literally sit in their law enforcement, criminal justice classes and say things like, well, yes, King George would definitely have looked at all of the patriots, the founding fathers, as terrorists. And they did, folks. They may not have used that term, but they were the enemy. Well, and it's interesting, and we discovered a long time ago, that law enforcement does not respect, as I'll say this, and I want to be very careful as in describing how I word this. I want you to understand that not all law enforcement is out to violate your rights. Most of them are out there just doing their duty, and they're taught in these classes and in criminal justice that the Constitution, it can be gotten around and you can ignore it as much as you can. And most people don't know their rights. And if you trick someone into, giving up their rights, then that's just fine. They don't look at the Constitution as sacred the way you and I do. They look at it more as an obstacle to get around. Necessarily evil, not so much. But certainly, in my opinion, it's kind of an intellectual vagrancy on their part to see the law that governs their behavior as an obstacle to them doing what they want, which is arresting anyone that pisses them off. So law enforcement is a mixed bag. It is a mixed bag, and it continues to be a mixed bag. And that, I think, is a symptom of government being out of control. When law enforcement quits obeying the law and starts looking for ways around it, and they selectively enforce it, like the Attorney General of the United States. The Attorney General is more than willing to look past the law, to ignore the law, and only enforce what he wants. Coward. All right, let's move on. I'm running out of time, but I got a couple questions left. We got Bonnie Blue. She says, what do you think of Biden using a pen to expand his executive powers by 123 new ones, including bank account seizures and the timing of the central bank digital currency rollouts ahead? Well, what do I think? I think Biden is an absolute scumbag. He's operating in violation of the Constitution. He's operating above his authority level, and he's ignoring the restrictions that are placed on the executive office. Period. Period. He's violating the Constitution. He's violating the rights of the people who suffer as a result of it. Now, when it comes to bank seizures, I think the government oversteps its bounds all the time. You should not be able to seize bank accounts, right? Period. Unless someone is found guilty. I don't think they should be able to seize bank accounts on suspicion alone, right? On suspicion alone. They just, everything is pro-government. The government can do whatever it wants. The government can do no wrong. Now, as far as the central bank digital currency, the CBDCs, I don't like them at all. I think they are illegal. I think they are evil because control of them is going to be left up to the banks. Once again, if you enter into contract with a bank by using and accepting central bank digital currencies, then you're subject to their rules. They consider them tokens. It's not money. So they can say, well, if you want to use our system, you have to abide by our rules. If you violate our rules, then we can punish you. We can take your money away from you. What we call money or currency, right? Real money is gold and silver coin. What they're offering is digital nonsense. And they call that money? No, they're going to use that term money, right? But they're digital tokens. It's bullshit. And they're going to use that to control people. Can't buy or sell unless you have their permission, unless you're a good boy, a good little girl, right? Treating everyone like children and rewarding assholes and punishing, well, people they consider to be assholes, right? They already reward the worthless people out there by giving them free money, giving them welfare, handing out. Look what they give to all the illegal immigrants that come here. They reward the fuck out of them and then punish you and say, you're going to pay for it. That's the government we have, folks. Hard to say it's worth supporting. But what choice do you have if you violate, their rules that they have for taking your money from you? Then they'll fine you and throw your ass in jail. Does that sound like a free country to you? Does that sound like free speech and rights? No, it doesn't. It sounds like tyranny. Smells like tyranny. Interesting stuff. Let us continue. Are we at the end of it? No, we got one more. It's Orlando. Orlando, thank you again, Mr. O. And he says, with everything that's going on, remember that once everything is set in motion, you probably have 24 to 72 hours to get where you need to be before having to hunker down. What he's talking about, everything's set in motion. If there is a big bomb that goes off in Europe, in America, or a series of bombs, the country could be locked down. You know, martial law. I love to use that phrase because that scares people. Woo, martial law, right? They could do curfews, travel restrictions. Yes, we had a taste of travel restrictions and curfews and lockdowns during Cerveza bug. Well, the country needed to be preserved and protected. It's for your own good, you see. So yeah, things go haywire, wonky, right? 24 to 72 hours to get to wherever it is you think you're going. Because if the government truly wants to lock down the country and put an iron grip on everything, it takes a while for them to mobilize. One of the ways to quickly, shall we say, restrict travel is to kill the electrical grid, to cut the power, which cuts the ability to get fuel, which cuts your ability to travel very far at all. That's why if you have the means to safely store fuel, it's just a good idea to do so. So you've got enough fuel that you can carry to get to where it is you are going. And the closer you are to any safe haven that you have in mind, be it a bunk out location, a bug out location, or a bunker location, then the closer it is, the easier it is. But yeah, and it depends on what part of the country you're in as to whether or not you can get there quickly and where the event occurs, right? If the West Coast takes a nuke, the East Coast, well, they're safe. Same as the other way around. You're in the middle of the country, you're probably safer than you are if you're on a coast, just because of the way the world works and operates. Folks, chance favors the prepared mind. Are you prepared? Are you ready? Have you thought about what it is you need to do in the event of an emergency? I sure hope you have. I'll be back 0:30 tomorrow morning, and we'll get into this some more. And folks, it is a mad-filled Monday. Just madness abounds. I knew it would, and who knows what we'll see next. So stay tuned. Help other people wake up. Make the decision theirs. Go. Do you know about all this shit this guy's talking about? Check out this internet address right there. Right? If you know all this and you're so smart, well, great. Maybe I'll tell these people, hey, I'm coming to your house. And they're going to go, why? This is great. This just occurred to me. Tell your friends, tell your family, hey, look, I've heard that things could go really bad really fast. I'm coming to your house because I'm sure you're ready, right? I bet you have a bunch of food all lined up because you're smart. Right? You can protect everyone because you know all about self-defense because you're an expert. Put it on them. Let them know you're coming to their house because they're so smart, and they're going to say, well, no, I'm not that smart. I don't have any of that stuff. And you go, really? With everything that's going on in the world, you don't have a month's worth of food? You don't have self-defense? I thought you were smart, damn it. Anyways, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night. God bless and Semper Fi. Aren't you glad you are a prepper?